So we all love Stranger Things, right? The kids on bikes, the terrifying Demogorgon, Eleven's obsession with Egos. I mean, it's pretty much a masterclass in 80s nostalgia. But what if I told you the show's real magic, the reason we're all so hooked, goes way beyond just spotting old movie posters? Today, we're going to peel back the layers and get to the real heart of why this show is such a massive deal.
Okay, let's start with a really bold claim. Some critics have argued that the show isn't really about the plot, the monsters, or even the characters. No, they say it's about something else entirely. The things from the 1980s. You know, the technology, the brands, the everyday junk. This one idea is basically the key that's going to unlock everything else we talk about.
All right, so first things first. Let's start with the most obvious layer, the nostalgia. The show is absolutely jam-packed with references, which makes it this perfect love letter to a very specific moment in pop culture. It's that fun, surface-level stuff we all get a kick out of.
I mean, the show totally wears its influences on its sleeve. You can feel that Steven Spielberg, E.T.-style buddy film vibe everywhere. You've got the creepy horror that feels straight out of a Stephen King novel, and that synth-heavy style of John Carpenter. And that's not even mentioning the direct shout-outs to Ghostbusters and D&D. This is that top layer of nostalgia. And honestly, it's brilliant. But it's just the beginning.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper now. What if the show's real obsession isn't the story, but the stuff? You know, the physical objects, the clunky, kind of charming technology from that era.
Seriously, think about it. How much screen time is dedicated to these things? Those huge walkie-talkies the kids use, Jonathan's whole darkroom photography setup, those clunky landline phones with the curly cords, these aren't just background props. The camera treats them like they're the stars of the show, filming them with this intense, almost obsessive focus that kind of hints at something more.
Just take this one scene from season 1. Joyce gets a new phone, and the camera just lingers on every single step as she takes it out of the box. I mean, it plays out exactly like a modern YouTube unboxing video. It's actually a pretty clever, little anachronistic joke. By using this modern ritual on such a boring, everyday 80s object, the show gives this beige phone a special status it never ever had back in the day.
And you know what? There's actually a name for this feeling. Technostalgia. It's not just a general longing for the past. Nope, it's a very specific desire for the feel and the function of old technology. It's nostalgia for things that we now see as totally obsolete.
So what is it we're actually nostalgic for? Well, it's this idea of an original. A vinyl record has scratches and pops that make it unique. It has this tangible presence, this aura. Digital media, it's the complete opposite. It's all about endless, perfect copies. There is no original, just flawless data. It really seems like we're longing for those tangible imperfections.
And what's really fascinating is that this anxiety, it's not new. This quote from a 1983 issue of Rolling Stone shows that people were worried about losing something to numbers and lasers, even as digital tech was just starting to pop up. Stranger Things taps right into that old fear, and it makes the flaws and the physical limits of the past seem incredibly desirable from our perfect digital present.
This whole idea even extends to the soundtrack, because just like that unboxing scene, the music in Stranger Things isn't exactly what it seems to be.
You hear this theme and you are instantly transported, right? That pulsing, arpeggiated synth is the absolute signature sound of the show. It feels like some lost artifact from the 80s. But is it?
Well, get this. The show's music is actually from a genre called Synthwave, which didn't even exist until the mid-2000s. It's a modern invention. It's not real 80s music. It's a perfected, digitally produced idea of what 80s music sounded like. It's this kind of hyper-nostalgia. It basically sounds more 80s than the 80s ever did.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The show's own composer, Kyle Dixon, basically admits it. They use vintage analog synthesizers to get those authentic sounds, but it's all recorded and polished on modern computers. It's the perfect blend of old and new, and it creates this idealized, picture-perfect version of the past. So yeah, the music isn't some relic from the past, it's a modern reenactment. It's a hyper-real version of the 1980s, a copy that has no original. This perfect, idealized sound just highlights how far away we are from the actual past, making it feel both familiar and completely unattainable. And you know what? That's exactly what makes it so appealing.
All right, we've talked about the tech, we've talked about the music. Now let's get to the deepest, most complicated layer of all, the monsters and the hidden social anxieties that they might represent.
This really is the central question, isn't it?
If the show is this carefully constructed fantasy of the 80s, then what role do these horrifying creatures from the Upside Down actually play in it all?
Let's go back to that Ghostbusters scene in Season 2. The boys are arguing about their costumes. Lucas, who's the only black kid in the group, is told he has to be Winston, the only black Ghostbuster. And when Mike denies it's about race, Lucas's reply is just so simple and devastating. You thought it. This isn't just some silly argument between kids. The show is pointing a finger directly at the racial blind spots of the very 80s movies it claims to love. It's a moment where a repressed social truth just bubbles right up to the surface. And that, right there, is where the monsters come in. They are basically metaphors for these repressed historical anxieties. The Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, they're not just creatures. They are physical manifestations of everything our cozy nostalgia wants us to forget about the 80s. The intense Cold War paranoia, the social injustices, the messy gender politics of the time. There's this incredible line from the writer James Joyce that captures this perfectly. History is a nightmare from which I'm trying to awake. The horror in Stranger Things isn't really about jump scares. It's about the weight of a past that continues to haunt our present, a nightmare that our cozy nostalgia tries and ultimately fails to help us escape from.
So how do we tie all of these layers together? We've got the technostalgia, the hyperreal music, and these monsters that represent our historical anxieties.
Well, it all comes down to this one really powerful contrast. The world of Hawkins, Indiana is this carefully curated analog reality, but the Upside Down, the home of the monsters and all the horror, is rendered almost exclusively with modern digital CGI. It is the technological other to the world we feel so nostalgic for. And this leads us to the final, fascinating twist. So the Upside Down is the digital monster for the analog world of the show. But what about for us? For us, the viewers living in a digital world. The argument is that for us, the analog 1980s itself becomes the monster. This idealized, unattainable, and ultimately haunting vision of a past that we can never, ever get back to. And all of that brings us to one final question for you to think about. The show's incredible power comes from its complicated relationship with a past that is both deeply desired and deeply unsettling. It forces us to ask ourselves, when we romanticize a past, especially one we might not have even lived through, what parts of our own present are we trying to escape?